Hi, my name is Tim Credeur, and I want to say thank you for listening to this CD. The title of the CD, What is Jiu-Jitsu? I came up with this title because I feel there's a lot of people in our culture and in our community that do not know what Jiu-Jitsu is. What I mean by that is, in pop culture, many people group all martial arts into the same field, right? With karate, taekwondo, kung fu, and the term jiu-jitsu kind of is, East Asian sounding, and so people assume they're all the same. The truth is, karate and taekwondo and kung fu are all very similar, but jiu-jitsu is not. Jiu-jitsu is much different than the other arts. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to explain to people what actually is Jiu-Jitsu, some of the history of Jiu-Jitsu, and also, more importantly, some of our legacy and some of our lineage in Jiu-Jitsu. We are proud members of the Carlson Gracie lineage under my instructor, Rodrigo Medeiros, and I would love the opportunity to speak with you today and talk to you a little bit about some of those things. So, if you don't know, my name is Tim Credeur again, and I am the owner and head instructor of Gladiators Academy of Lafayette. We are a mixed martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. We teach children as young as 3 years old all the way up to 65-year-old men. And we also have many women that train here with us in Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts, and I also have a boot camp program, kids summer camp programs, all built around the art of Jiu-Jitsu. So without further ado, let's get started. For those who are not aware or have never heard of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, let's take a look at what it is. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a sport that evolved from self-defense. In Brazil, Jiu-Jitsu is not called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's simply called Jiu-Jitsu. When the world found out about the origins of Jiu-Jitsu, because it was tied to the Gracie family, many people began calling it Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. As a rule of thumb, calling it Jiu-Jitsu, one can never go wrong describing it to the unaware. Truthfully, there are two main categories of Jiu-Jitsu. The first being sport Jiu-Jitsu. And sport Jiu-Jitsu is kind of like an umbrella that encompasses the three different aspects of sportive Jiu-Jitsu. The first being gi grappling, where the practitioners compete in the traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kimono. The second being no gi grappling, where the practitioners use Jiu-Jitsu techniques but in shorts and t-shirt. And the third being mixed martial arts, or no holds barred, where the practitioners are allowed to strike one another with punches and kicks and elbows, and Jiu-Jitsu is utilized in those forms for submitting the opponent. Each one is a little harder than the other, and the understanding of the student is to gradually grow through these different styles and levels of competition to eventually become effective with their martial art against anyone, no matter what their background or what their skill set may be. So sport Jiu-Jitsu is kind of where you see tournaments and academies and students training for those competitions, and the goal of sport Jiu-Jitsu in gi and no gi is to win by submission or by points. But the other side of Jiu-Jitsu is called self-defense Jiu-Jitsu, where the focus is mainly self-protection of encounters that might happen in the street. The early days of Jiu-Jitsu were held in the highest regards because of Jiu-Jitsu's effectiveness in ending a fight very quickly. You can see with the early days of the UFC how Royce Gracie used Jiu-Jitsu to finish all of his fights against opponents much larger than him, and sometimes in 30 seconds. I think the longest his fights were 2 minutes. But he had cousins, Royce and Hoyler and Hauff and Henzo and Hickson and Carlson Jr. and Holker. They were fighting all over the world and defending the name of Jiu-Jitsu effectively. So it was the art became very prominent as one of the most effective martial arts the world has ever seen. At that time, most or all of the competitors they were competing against knew nothing about ground fighting, and those that did, they did not know how to effectively finish a fight or stop someone from finishing the fight against them. As the years went on, competitors knew that in order to be effective in competitions, they'd have to learn what the Gracies and the other practitioners in Brazil were using for years. If there's one thing that can be learned, it's that whether you're using sport or self-defense jiu-jitsu, either one can effectively finish a fight. As the popularity of jiu-jitsu rose in the United States and around the world, more and more organizations became born, starting with the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, or IBJJF for short, began holding events in Brazil and then the US and Europe and now all over the globe. And it's reached a much broader audience and gone international. The IBJJF is who sanctions all of the black belts belting systems and sanctions the world championships, the Pan American championships, and is really the governing body for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the world today. And as more and more academies started, the amount of competitors increased. Without silencing the need for more competitions, other organizations like Abu Dhabi Combat Club or the ADCC became more mainstream, and they became one of the most elite organizations for submission grappling tournaments. Competitors attended as invitation-only events, and with the popularity and effectiveness of jiu-jitsu, the United States military and local law enforcement also became interested. Many black belt jiu-jitsu coaches and practitioners also instruct the U.S. military in the art of self-defense and hand-to-hand combat. I myself have been positioned to teach many Marines and Navy personnel and Army personnel my jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts skills. I actually traveled with Ranger up to many different bases throughout California to teach a wide variety of military personnel. I've also, in my experiences, taught hundreds of police officers and law enforcement professionals and FBI agents and special forces soldiers the things that I know, because when they go out there, they're not competing, they're fighting for their lives. And so jiu-jitsu has been a valuable tool for many of them, and I'm very happy about that.